Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Long Range Corner with your host Matthew Bardeen. Here I am. We are going to finish up the QAV540 build tonight. We are going to talk about a little bit of a nasty experience I had out in the mountains. And what else am I going to talk about? There was something else I was going to talk about. What did I put in the description? Yeah, epic trips. So basically the same thing, my experience out in the mountains. So let's talk about the first two things, or the last two things first. There we go. Went up to Laguna Teno in the Male region. That's basically a volcanic lake at about 22,500 meters to spend the night. We're going to come on. Am I coming on? Do you see me? It says I'm waiting. I hope I'm streaming. Hello, hello, hello. Is this thing on? It says it's waiting for Chile Vuela. And there we go. Look, there I am. It's a little bit delayed, but hey, cool. So sorry about that. Yeah. Never sure if these things work. Right. Okay, so anybody out there? Say hello. Yeah, very good. Excellent. So, yes, as some of you may have seen, I took an epic trip up to Laguna Teno. It's quite an interesting voyage. You'll see some of that in one of upcoming video. I need to figure out how I'm going to tell that story, but it's someplace that I've flown before. I've known of the place. I know how hard it is to get up there. You really need a fairly high vehicle to get up there, not necessarily a 4x4, but it's about a half hour to 40 minutes of just bumping along a 15-kilometer road. And I say road in quotes because it's just this dirt track up the side of a mountain. And then at the end of this dirt track, you arrive at Laguna Teno, which is beautiful, just beautiful place to go. The water there is this turquoise color that it's hard to describe. And so I went up, I took my kayak, the kayak that I had shown previously, and did a little bit of kayaking with a friend, Gonzalo, who's my guy that always comes with me. So yeah, got up there, did some kayaking, did some flying, and pretty quickly I noticed I was having some problems. Number one, there was some major problems with RF interference. Never really got good RSSI. My crossfire kept bumping up to 500 milliwatts like almost immediately. On both of my quads, I took my Alien and my TBS G2. So that was the first problem. The second problem was I was getting random yaw pitches or yaw twitches. So I'd be flying along and all of a sudden my quad would do like a 360, a complete 360, or do a 180, or just turn 90 degrees and just out of the blue. I figured out pretty quickly that it happened when I was doing the low throttle maneuvers. So I thought, oh, what the heck is going on here? Maybe it's that I've got grit in the motors. So I, blew out the motors as best I could, and it got better, but not really. I kept doing it. So I just kept flying, just modified my flying style, but that was with the Alien. I started playing around with the TBS G2, and it started doing the same thing. So I said, oh, wait, something's wrong here. So I kind of thought it was the crossfire. I had the suspicion that it was a crossfire because it was affecting both the quads, and I figured, the transmitter's not going to go wrong. That's really odd. It's got the Hall effect sensors. No, shouldn't go wrong. So that was my working assumption, and I just kind of went with that. It was happening in one basic area when I was flying in one basic area, so I thought maybe it's just associated with that area. And Yeah, so come to find out today, I did a little bit of investigating after Mike Virgin, Obsidian FPV. He mentioned, yeah, there's other people that have had problems with the M9 Hall effect gimbals on the Tyrannus. I said, oh, really? So I did some investigating, looked at the RC Group's thread, and lo and behold, there are other people out there that are reporting random yaw twitches on the throttle. So I thought that's really odd, especially with M9 gimbals. So I was like, what's going on? So I did some experimenting on my radio, and sure enough, it doesn't happen all the time. It only happens maybe 1%, 2% of the time, but it does jump. If I do a punch up and then lower the throttle quickly, it will jump off to the left. So obviously I've got an M9 gimbal going bad, and this is not the first one. So if you ever experience that, if you start experiencing yaw twitches or twitches on one of your other axes, that is potentially the cause that maybe your gimbal is going bad. What caused it? I have no idea. I really don't. I opened it up, looked for any dirt. Somebody mentioned on the video that I posted earlier that maybe it was a loose wire. But as I said, I opened it up and I looked, and I didn't see anything loose. So, or obviously loose. I'm gonna have to take a little closer inspection. But yeah, so that was a little bit of a disappointment. The other disappointment is because of the RF issues. I never really got to the top of the volcano that I wanted to fly. I got about 4.2 kilometers out of maybe 6, somewhere around there, before I decided, yeah, no, I'm turning around, because I was at 2 watts and probably 40% link signal. And I said, that's a little bit low for me. I think I'm going to turn around. So, yep. I turned it around, came back with both my quads. So that's a little bit of the story of the epic voyage. Let me grab the quad. I will show you. For some reason I have. Go. So I'm using, as you can see here, these are the Luminaire Gate Crusher 6.5.3 or 6x5x3 props, and they actually do pretty well. I'm quite happy with how they perform. There is a little bit of jello, but I think that's maybe the tune. I flew it with a lighter battery, and it performed really well. Once I put on the 5,000 milliamp battery, then it started doing a little bit of vibration. So I think that's just because of the high prop loading. But in general, I like these props. I think these are decent props. I'd like to try them on my 5S setup, except for my 5S setup is dead. Yeah, so that one review on these props, pretty good. Efficiency was pretty decent. Top of the G2, yeah, there we go. Let me get that up there. Hopefully you can see that. So I'm using the split. I'm using the split too. I don't have a session that I put on here. You probably can see it all right there. Probably even see it worse now. Okay. No. Yeah. So this is this split 2. I'm just using the default camera mount, and I've got it in the extenders that come with the split 2, and that's basically it. So that's what other news of the week. This is my X24. If you're observant, you will notice that it's missing an ESC, and that is because it basically exploded into flames. I flew maybe 5 seconds on the 6x3x3 HQs that I have been flying before, and basically the quad just fell out of the air. I thought it was that one of the props exploded because it was just gone. It was not on the shaft. Said, okay, change the props, stuck in another battery, and boom, the ESC explodes into flames. So I'm not exactly sure what happened. These are the Cobra 35 amp ESCs, supposedly rated between 3 and 6S. Your mileage may vary. I'm not very impressed. I've had 2 of them go bad already, so I'm not so impressed with the Cobras. I need to find some good ESCs here for 6S that can support up to 6S, because I really want to test this. This is the power quad. This is got the F80 2200 kV motors on it, and right now Cyclone props, the 6040. So I was hoping to have a little bit more information about the props for you guys, a little bit more testing on the props, but obviously not working. Yeah, so now let's get back into the QAV540. Let's get into this build. Some of you may notice I've got a little the end of a trekking pole here. That's going to be my mount. Hopefully it works better than what I had previously, and hopefully I can get in there. Yeah, so let's get into this. Pull this out, move you down here, and shed a little bit of light, and hopefully you can see. See that all right? Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so what have I done since the last time? By the way, tonight's build is sponsored by Cerveza Austral, and we have a Patagonia Pale Ale. Not India Pale Ale, Patagonia Pale Ale. You know, good stuff. So let me pour that before we get into this. Right. So what have I done? I did actually test fly this. I did fly at line of sight, just to make sure everything was right. And of course, it wasn't. The observant among you will probably notice that the KISS FC is on backwards, since this is the front of the quad. And I didn't realize that. So I plugged the battery in, went to take off, and it went BOOM! And yeah, that's it. So I broke a couple props, and yeah, not really good. So let me turn you down here a little bit. Hopefully the volume is a little bit better and I'm not clipping. So yeah, fixed that. Just rotated the flight controller in software, so it's now 180 degrees off. Wire up the crossfire receiver, which you see here. It's a crossfire receiver. I just put it on temporarily just to test it, and did some basic tuning. I'll give you the PIDs and all that later, but suffice to say they're actually pretty high. I was actually pretty impressed with how high they are. So today we've got the TBS Core PNP Pro here that we're going to install. We've got a 2.4 gigahertz video transmitter that I'm going to install. Get that out and put my finger open on the staples. And also we've got a TBS GPS that we're going to install as well, since we want efficiency information and all that. I decided, yeah, I'm going to splurge on one of those, and maybe I can, if I do it correctly, I can use it for other quads as well, and get efficiency information off of my other quads. So yeah, we got a TBS GPS right there. So I don't know how much you guys know about the TBS ecosystem, but the nice thing about all of this is it's pretty much all plug and play. The only other thing I've got here is a Carnegie HS 1177 camera. So that's pretty much plug and play. Say what you will about Turnigy and their quality and Hobby King, but they do provide nice silicone wires with their cameras, unlike a lot of the other manufacturers, at least unlike a lot of the other manufacturers did. Oh, and I do have to send out a special shout out to my friend Luis Casado, who thinks that I should do my live feeds in Spanish. I don't know why, but he seems to be fairly adamant about it and quite rude. Entonces, para Luis, puedes chupar mi pene. Sorry, I'm not going to translate that. Hopefully the Spanish among you will get that. Or as we say in Chile, chúpeme pico. Right. Back to the build. So the first thing we're going to do, I've already taken off the XT60 connector that I had, and this is what comes with the PNP Pro. And basically this is what measures your current. It's 2 to 6S, measures 100 amps. It's got a BST in here, and then two XT60s. I don't like these particularly. Especially, I don't like the bulkiness of it. It's big. It's not pleasant to use, but it's what comes with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it naked. We're going to take the XT60 connectors off. So we're going to desolder these. And as you can see, they take up most of the board. Most of the bulk of the board. The actual board itself is fairly small. So if we take these off and wire them direct here, what we'll get is something that's much nicer form factor. So that's what we're going to do. And helpfully, this is labeled here, ESC and battery. So the battery goes direct to the battery, and the ESC goes to whatever power distribution board you're using. Now the advantages of this is that it will measure all of the current that's being used by the PVP. It will measure the current that's being used by the Core Pro, your VTX, everything, so it gets measured here. So it should be a little bit more accurate than what gets measured on the KISS. So now the thing I don't like about it is it takes a ton of work to actually get these connectors off. That's my main issue. I've asked Trappy if he could maybe do a naked version of this. Let's see here. This is not working very well. You see that over there? Let's move this out of the way for the moment, since we're not going to need it. So yeah, this is a kind of fiddly process, but it's necessary to do this. If you want to use the XT60 connectors, you can. It's just a little bit more weight and bulk, and like I said, I don't really think it's necessary. And of course, this is going to move. By the way, these third hands are not always as nice as one would like. Not as stable as one would like. So basically you heat the solder up, and then you take your solder sucker and just get as much of it off as possible. And like I said, it's a little bit of a process doing it. How are you guys doing while I'm doing this? How was your week? Any epic flights? Any news that you heard that I should know about? What's the latest news in the FPV world? The long range world? The nano crossfire? That looks pretty nice. You've got there a very, very small receiver for the crossfire with all of the power of the Micro TX, supposedly. At least that's what they claim. I'd like to test it out. Maybe I'll get one in here in the future. Not sure how long in the future it will be, but it will be in the future. As some of you may know, maybe not, somebody hit my car a while back, and I've had to spring for the repairs on that because he doesn't have the money to pay for it. Love chili. But yeah, that's where most of my money is going right now, to pay for my car repairs. But I was able to get a couple things this month. MB262V2, yeah, that looks like a nice frame. I'm liking how the GoPro sits kind of down in the frame, and just the way it looks. It reminds me a little bit of the Blackout frames, the Blackout 330, without the inherent disadvantages of that frame. See what other things I've done this week. Not much, to be honest. Been working around the house. Like I said, this is my break, so it's my time to get things done, for better or for worse. So, spent a lot of time fixing my shed. I've pretty much got that ready, so I can focus on the next stuff I need to fix. Joys of home ownership is the things you need to fix never ever decrease. You get one thing done, and yeah, next thing comes. This is going to be a little bit more of a pain than I had hoped. Rain. No rain here. No rain here for probably another 2 to 3 months. Which is good and bad. Good because it means more time for flying. Bad because, well, you know, plants. Chili basically lives. There we go. There's the XT60's gone. Chile lives off of the winter rains. So we receive, at least here in this region, we receive around 1 meter of rain a year, primarily concentrated in the months of June, July, and August. Hello, Isle of Mull. How you doing tonight? You didn't know I was on Chad Nowak's chat this morning and this afternoon, and actually this evening. He's doing a 24-hour chat, or 24-hour live chat, live feed. So I was on there saying hello. Nice of him to have me on there. Okay, that's ready. Now we need to get our wires ready, the main battery wires here. Take that back over. Extraneous cables that we don't need. So, this is always the fun bit. Trying to get this soldered on. Through. So once again, here as you can see, ESC and battery. ESC goes towards the PDB. Basically, that's It's a stand-in for your ESC. This, I think, is really designed for a wing. And then battery goes off to the battery. I'm going to leave these fairly long because I don't know what batteries I'm going to use, and I want a little bit of flexibility. But that's going to make a little bit less build. Yeah, I was surprised to see myself in Chad Nowak's chat as well. Not necessarily high on the list of FPV people, but hey, it's cool. Thank you for having me, Chad. So, yeah, as normal, twist the wires, get them nice and neat. Somebody was saying that you should, to prevent the wicking on the wires, you should do this fairly quickly. I disagree with that. You know, do a basic pre-tinning of these wires and then connect it fairly quickly. I disagree with that because I think that is a recipe for cold solder joints. I prefer more heat rather than cold solder joints. So I like to get things well tinned, especially on these big battery cable wires. These are 12 gauge battery cable. Why 12 gauge? Because, well, that's what I've got. So I try to standardize on things. I don't know how much amps my quads are going to be using. That's not going on there very well. So I tend to go with overkill. This shouldn't use too many amps. Going by my initial testing, it was about 13 amps, somewhere around there that I was running. Handy dandy third. And this is where it gets complicated. So one side of this is, yeah, Alan, basically what I've got here, and I'm not sure if you can see it and point to it, I've got my spool of wire here, and I just take off what I need as I use it. And then I've got a little extra spool of wire there for, you know, scraps. Upside down, I know, but sorry about that. I just pulled my pin out, my scraps. Yeah, I'll leave it. So I like to reuse as much as possible. I'm not sure I have much Scottish heritage in me. I think I'm more, well, Yorkshire, I think, is... the Bardeen name comes from Yorkshire. It was actually Barden, and then got perverted fairly early into the arrival of the Bardens in United States. And they arrived pretty quickly after the first pilgrims arrived. We've actually got a fairly decent genealogy there that traces it back to at least the guys that came in, and they traced the name change back. So it's kind of nice having that. There's not many Bardeens in the world, and they're all related in some fashion. So cool, because I don't know how many of you know this, but there is a very famous Bardeen out there. James Bardeen, who is the only person in the world, well, he was the only person in the world, he died in early 2000s, if I recall correctly. But he is the only person to have won 2 Nobel Prizes in physics. He won one for his work with the original transistor with Shockley and Breton way back in the 1950s. And then he won another for his work in superconductivity. So, kind of cool having a cool guy, physics guy in my ancestry. Of course, I never met him, don't know him, fairly distant relative, you know, so I can't say that I've inherited any of his smarts. It's just a nice story. But yeah, see, so if you see another Bardeen, it's more than likely that they're related to me in some fashion. What is that fashion? No idea. But they are most likely related to me. My hometown, there was 3 Bardeens in the phone book. My grandfather, my father, and me when I had my own phone. There you go. So right now we're doing the battery connector. We will put, bring this back over, make this easy. We will put some heat shrink on it before we put the XT60 on it, even though I'm sure this will, heat shrink will fit over this without any problem. So by doing this, you probably avoid your warranty of your Core PNP Pro. Actually, no, TBS is pretty good. They said they take whatever you've got and they'll repair it if you break it, which is one of the things I really respect about TBS. And their customer service is really, really good. And Trappy's a good guy. He's funny. I like him. Yeah, it can be a bit of a jerk sometimes, but hey, I think if you're in business, you really need to be a bit of a jerk. How many of you guys are out there? How many guys have we got watching? I don't even know. And not even telling me. Stream health 0 watching now. Thanks. Let's view on the watch page. See if that helps. Says I got 9 people out there. Cool. Now say hi if you're out there. Hope you're enjoying this. Enjoying how I spend my Saturday night instead of out with friends. I'm sitting here building a quad for you guys. YouTube says 10. Thought 9. Yep, that's about right. I'll have some good footage up for you guys soon. Been working on that video from the other day. You saw a little bit of a preview of it with the yaw spin on the video that I posted earlier. Not sure if that will actually make it into the final video or not, but we'll see. Always a question for me. I don't want to do the same type of video all the time, but I really like showing you guys the voyage of how I get to these places, because for me that's interesting. That's half of the appeal of these places, is how do you get to them. I don't like, going down to the local field and flying. That's pretty boring, but these places, I think they're kind of special. So I wanted to do like a time lapse of the that little road that I had to drive up to get to the place. But then the time lapse is good 2 minutes, 3 minutes long. Would you sit through that? Would that be interesting to you, or do you just want to see highlights? Come on, let me know. What do you guys think about that? And then do you want to see bits? I'm having a real problem with this. It's not sitting properly. Do you want to see? Hi. Fix the yaw jitter issue? No, I didn't fix it, but I know what it is, Flux. It's the gimbal. When I do, just try this again, burning myself. Yeah, baby. When I do a quick throttle up and then throttle down, it will sometimes randomly jump. Just jump to the left. And I can confirm that. I've seen that on the... Stop moving. Ah, yeah. So I can confirm that on the screen of the Trinus. I actually see it. I actually see it happen. I see it jump. Those are the M9 gimbals. It's probably just something worn out, or maybe it was affected by the magnetic fields in the area. I know there were some pretty strong magnetic fields because, well, the Mavic had problems flying there. Yeah, I've been using the M9 since they came out as well. I'm not even sure when I first started using them. But yeah, I've been using them, and until now I haven't had a problem. Just with this last flight. Boom. But, as I said previously, there are other people that have reported problems with the gimbals as well. So it's not just me. There are other people out there. There are other people having that same problem. So evidently there's, but it seems to be, as far as I can tell, just on the throttle axis, which is weird because the M9 gimbals, I think, are the same for each axis. I think. We just installed them differently, if I recall correctly. Take off a spring. Does anybody know? I don't remember. So, leads me to wonder why it would happen primarily on the yaw axis and not on, for example, the pitch and roll axis. What's going on? What's the reason for that? So anyway, yeah, mysteries of life. For the moment, I'm going to go back to the old gimbals because that's what I've got and I want to fly. I will order a new set of M9 gimbals and I'll keep an eye out for this in the future. The one guy on RC Groups that mentioned that he had that problem, he took his gimbals apart, cleaned them completely apart, cleaned them, and it still had that same problem. So it's obviously a problem in the actual sensor, the Hall effect sensor, rather than the... Yeah, we're going to, if I get too far into this, get some heat shrink here. So it seems to be a problem with the Hall effect sensor itself, rather than, you know, maybe a gimbal problem. The Hall effect, I really like how smooth they are. It is definitely noticeable. However, with this problem, I'm not sure if that smoothness outweighs reliability issues. Supposedly, they're more reliable as well. I mean, if you've got the normal pots, they will wear out over time. So these Hall effect gimbals shouldn't wear out. Which leads me to question, yeah, what's going on? Why is this happening? What was it an effect of this magnetic field that caused them to just basically die? And very importantly, when you're doing this, make sure you get the positive and the negative correct. I was once soldered up a black one of these, and I swore I looked at it, looked 2-3 times, and the negative, the black had a little seam along the negative side. So I looked at it and said, "Oh, that's positive. Okay." So I wired it up backwards. Luckily, it didn't blow anything up, but still pretty interesting. When I turned the quad on and when I plugged the battery in, it sparked. Like, oh shit. Yeah, sorry. Oh crap. So yeah, be sure which side is which. And we're not doing very well in soldering tonight. Yeah, your battery connector, that's not really important, right? You don't need to have that well soldered, right? Probably should add more solder, better solder there. And if you're keeping track, this is the XT60 that I took off the power sensor board, the current sensor board. If I was really doing this correct, I'd use a completely new one, but hey. Scottish ancestry, right? Gotta use the scraps. Oh, that's probably a really cold solder joint there. What other news? How many of you guys are going to get a Nano RX? Buy into the hype. For me, the Micro RX is pretty much is good on pretty much all of my builds. The only one where it would be nice to have the Nano RX is the X24 because the space is so tight in that. The sticks, I never changed the sticks. I changed the gimbals itself. Yeah, that's nice and clean. And now, heat shrink. So this is probably about the fiddliest thing that you're going to have to do if you do a build like this using these components. I've done this many times. I've built many quads using these basic components, so I've got this basically down. The other fiddly thing is you're going to have to build a connector for, oh, and you're telling me that it's just too small? Make it fit. You're going to have to build a connector for, or splitter for the BST if you don't already have one. They come with the diversity receivers, and I actually have some in stock, I think. See here. Do I have a BST splitter here? Ooh, I thought I did. Maybe I don't. Oh, yes, I do. Lucky. So these are the BST splitters. I'm not sure if you can see that. Yeah, so these are the BST splitters. Basically, it's just a one-to-one connection between all of these pins. So pin 1 goes to pin 1 here. Yeah, make sure I get that right. Yeah, I think it's just a one-to-one connection. So, to be honest, yeah, no. Pin 1 here would go to pin 1 here. So if you're looking at the BST connector, let's see if I've got a good one here that I can show you. Make sure I get this right. These are all the cables that come with the Core Pro. You've got your cam, you've got your VTX, all nice. As you can see, they're not silicone, they're nice, crappy wires, but what it is. The BST wires are a little bit nicer. Yeah, so if you look at the connector, pin 1 is yellow, pin 1 is yellow. Pin 2 is white, pin 2 is white. Pin 3 is black, which is I think a ground, shield ground, and pin 3 is black, then red and black. Red and black. So you need to wire all the pins the same. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of these cables are nice. These cables are pretty nice because they're nice and shielded. You can get a lot of space on them, which is why we're going to use these in our build in the BSD splitter. But the other ones, yeah, I can live without them. I've gone through quite a few of them in my time, especially, like I said, in the X24, because the X24 is so tight. It's really a pain to get things in there correctly, and basically the VTX and the Core Pro are held to the ceiling of the quad by friction. Really, they're just stuck in there by friction. I don't even have a zip tie holding them, a cable, or yeah, cable tie, zip tie, whatever you want to call them, holding it on. It just sticks in there by friction. That's how tight the build is. This is wedged in there between the camera and the back plate on the X24. Not ideal, but it's what you got to do if you want 2.4 gigahertz video on your quads. I'm clamoring for FPV Vision 22.4 forever because of that reason. It would eliminate all this. Let's get that yet. There. It would eliminate all this faffing about with this connector here. It would eliminate a lot of the space issues that I've got, but unfortunately Treppy doesn't seem to think, or at least they don't, there's not really the market out there now. So let's see here, we're looking at the VTX. We're actually going to use a cable that comes with the Core PNP Pro. Nice 5 volt, because that's what this runs off of. It's a 500 milliwatt. I don't really see the need for more on the mini quads or even large quads. So that goes to the VTX. It's 5 volts, hooks right up there. Cam, we're going to use the one that comes with the Turnigy. We're going to make sure the cables are right. So that end is yellow, black, red, and white. And the same here. That's yellow, black, red, and white. Goes there. And it goes into the Turnigy. Just like that. Then we take one of our BST cables here. Plug that in there. Plug that into our BST splitter. Another cable. The other thing I don't like about these cables is they're huge. So you get one small one and then you get various degrees of large ones. Pain in the butt. Thankfully, I think I bought enough of these Core PNP Pros. Oh my god. That I have a fair number of cables here to choose from. No, Trappy! No, I'm not one of your best customers, really. I hesitate to think how many Core PNP Pros I've owned over the years. Or over the year. I want a small one. Come on, give me a small one. Problem is they typically use the small ones and leave the large ones. It's a reasonably small one. And yeah, okay, we'll use those. Yeah, I think the market for the 2.4 vision should be getting bigger as well, especially with all the crossfires out there. Basically, it's opened up the market for different antenna or different video options. So yeah, one of these goes direct to your Core PNP Pro. One of these will go to your TBS Compass. And I actually need another cable. Oh, how about that? And your Crossfire will actually come with a BST cable as well. That's one of the black cables. It's really small, kind of thin. I actually prefer those rather than these cables because these are larger. On my mini quad builds, I like them small. I may go through and change these out if I find smaller cables, but for now, for illustration purposes. So now you can either plug the Crossfire directly into the core, or you can plug it into the BST splitter. It's the same. It works the same. And that goes to the BST on. And there you go. That's basically your FPV system all set up. And you can lay it out any way you want. I got to figure out how I'm going to lay this out in here now. But in terms of like ease of use, I really like this. This is just, it's just plug and play. All your FPV is set up now. You've got your VTX. It's got 5 volts. It's stable. You've got your Core PNP Pro that gives you the OSD. It connects to the GPS, so you get GPS off of that. You can set it up with your Tyrannus to log that information. It exposes that to your across the control link. So it just works, and I really like that. That's one of the reasons why I like this system so much. The drawbacks, it's expensive having to buy each of these. This is $80. This is $50. The GPS is $80. So it's expensive. It gets up there. What does it gain you? Like I said, ease of use, ease of setup. It's relatively painless. It's a known quantity. You pretty much know it's going to work out of the box. I've had very few problems with this. The VTXs, like I said, I have had more problems with these VTXs than I would have liked. That's one of the reasons why I'd like to see another VTX on the market, another 2.4 gig VTX on the market. For example, the 2.4 Vision would be incredible for us distance pilots. Yeah, yep. FPV Vision makes it palatable. You don't need to use the Betaflight. You don't need to use the Calibri in the FP Vision. You really don't. You can. I've got that set up on my G2 with a KISS CC. You don't get a lot of the benefits, but it's in terms of the setup. It's pretty similar, to be honest. The only trick is getting the power out from the FP Vision to your flight controller or your ESCs. If you do it, you can do... where is that? Give me a second and I'll show you. Somewhere here. In my little box of tricks. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I'm not sure I can lay my hands on it right now. I'm not seeing it here. Maybe in one of my other boxes. But you can get a diagonal layer for your ESCs, so you can run your own ESCs. You can run the KISS, the KISS CC if you hook it up correctly, and it is basically the same. It just works the same. Get all your info, your current info and all that easily, accurately. So FP Vision, definitely good system. I like it. It's flexible and it works. And I like having the Core PNP Pro. And you can do things like change the settings on your camera from within. You can change the settings on your camera from within the FP Vision. I mean, that's just brilliant. I mean, I know you can do that with Betaflight, but it's not as sexy. You can change the settings on your VTX. You can change everything. It's just all sexy. Really, it's a gorgeous solution. So the Core PNP Pro actually itself has a little indentation on the bottom, so we're doing a little doubling up on the sticky tape. I use double-sided tape for everything, pretty much. I use it on my ESCs typically. This doesn't have it. ESCs are just floating around. I might go back and fix that, but depends on how motivated I am, how well this flies, how well I want to make it fly. PNP Pro there. Just give enough room for the camera to fit up there. Yeah, barely. stick the GPS somewhere in the middle. We'll probably run a back-mounted battery on this. So, fit in there. Yeah, no worries. Definitely show you how to set that up. It's really quite simple. Like I said, the biggest issue is where to get the power from. And if you do it correctly on the wing layer, you can just pull it, or on the ESC layer, you can just pull it off of that. If you don't have the ESC layer, then you have to do a little bit of fiddling about, maybe grab it up from the posts that actually run the power. There should be enough room in there for accessing the ESC, hopefully, or the flight controller. I did manage to get this all set up, and did manage to get this all set up on KISS. It's got the latest firmware, or reasonably recent firmware on it. So that goes there, that goes there. ESCs have been updated as well, so they're on 1.11, I think, 1.11b, something like that. So yeah, that's hooked up, that's hooked up. I'm gonna figure out where the GPS is going to sit. But apart from that, we're pretty much ready to do some long-range flying. I need to stick the VTX on there somewhere. Look at that. Don't actually have enough room to reach my crossfire. And there we go. Now we got enough room to reach the crossfire. And I'll probably zip tie these cables so they don't fly out. VTX. Where am I going to put the VTX? Put that up here. That's there. Against the separation between the RX and the VTX, so I can really get out there. Did I keep the stock mini quad KISS settings for test flights? No, I did initially, but then I quickly went and did some tuning. And I must say that these settings are fairly distinct from mini quad settings. I was actually able to raise the D term. No, I had to lower the D term because otherwise the motors were really getting hot. So I had to lower the D term to, I think, around 3, somewhere around there. I think it still could use a little bit of tuning. It could use a little bit more D, but the P I cranked up to about 7, somewhere around there, without it having any oscillations. So they're fairly distinct. And there we go. Everything in there. Like I said, we'll zip tie things down, the wires down. And I've got to figure out which antenna I'm going to use and where the antenna is going to sit. I've actually got a couple side feed antennas, or a side feed antenna, so I may run that. And yeah, apart from mounting the FPV camera, which should be mounted, good question where I'm going to mount that. Probably right there. Means I'm going to need to get the ants running around my desk. Let's put that. So there we go. Apart from doing all the little fiddly details, like getting all the cables where they should go and mounting the camera, it's ready for its maiden FPV voyage. You guys excited about that? I'm excited about that. Hey Shane, how you doing? Did you manage to fly your Blackout? Yeah, it's pretty much ready to fly. I actually flew it line of sight past weekend, making sure everything was right. Had the flight controller on backwards, so I just swapped that in. Swap that out in. Swap the orientation and the GUI. Other than that, did a little bit of tuning. Made sure everything looked okay. So heavy, but footage looked decent. Yeah. How did it fly? That's the question. I'm sure the footage is mainly the main issue, but it's always interesting to hear how it flew. I really need to get off my butt and get my mini drac done and in the air. I don't know. I don't want to. It's such a nice wing, and I have so little experience with wings that I don't want to ruin it. My first flight, so I've been dragging my feet. Need to get off my butt. Do something interesting. Rather than building yet another mini quad. So yes, this will run the stock antenna. This hasn't been tuned. I need to go through and chop off 7.5 millimeters from each end, like they suggest. Not sure where my mounting might for my Trinity. I got one around here somewhere. And we need to stick on the GPS. And because I want to use this on other quads, and stick it on Velcro. FYI, if you use Velcro for sticking stuff on things, it helps to develop a system. Like, always have one style Velcro on the quad, and always have the other side style of Velcro on the thing you're taking off and putting back on. Bruce XJet RC Model Reviews, he used the sticky Velcro, or the loop Velcro, hook Velcro on the thing, on the quad, and then the loop Velcro on whatever he had sticking to it. I do the opposite. Why? Meh. Just, that's the way I started doing it. That's the way it's going to stay. Orientation does matter on the GPS, so get it right. GPS logo should go through, or the writing should go to towards the front. Soft Velcro on the quad. Yeah, I do that as well. That's just how I started doing it. And this, since I've stuck to my system, that's how it will stay. There you go. GPS on. All we need to do is mount the camera, and it is ready for its maiden voyage. Question is, do I have a mount handy? Yes, I do. A rather beat up mount, but it's a mount nonetheless. Now imagine that this actually came with a mount somewhere. And I gotta figure out how I'm going to mount that so it sits in there properly. But yeah, there we go, and hopefully that won't interfere with the The camera mount should sit right there, and that should be good. Look at that, folks. Yeah, dual lock is awesome. I actually have that. I have some of that as well. You can see there. But for cheapness, I use the Velcro. All right. So I'm going to, I think, oh, I've still got beer left, so we can still chat. Any questions about this particular build? Anything that you'd like to see? Anything that you would like me to explain? Oh, there it is. There's my FPV camera mount. Anything you would like me to explain in a little bit more detail, or you didn't feel like I didn't explain as well as I could have. So we're going to stick this camera up as far as we can. And it's got to stay there by friction. Does the height off the GPS, off the frame matter? Technically, yes. You really want... Actually, guys, I'm not going to put that on quite yet. I'm going to fix it here first. Technically, you want the GPS as far off the frame as possible. If I really wanted to do this properly, if I was doing like things like position hold or things like that, I would use one of these turret mounts. So that would put the GPS way up here on a stalk, and that would really remove it from any electromagnetic interference from the motors or the ESCs. However, since I'm not doing position hold and I'm just using this for basic stats, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to leave it here down on the frame and well protected. And that makes it easier to protect it. Yes, they do screening material in a Phantom or a Mavic. I'm not sure if you've actually seen the inside of a Mavic, but the GPS is like right up top, and there's like a foil around it to help keep it that electromagnetic interference away. The nice thing about these turret mounts is they're just plug and play, so they just slide in there and they lock into one position. So it's nice and it's sturdy. And these are carbon fiber rods. One of the nicest GPS mounts I've found, if you're into that kind of thing. Which I know not many of you are, but hey, gotta mention it just in case. So this isn't the ideal method of mounting the camera, but it's basically what we're going to use. So we're going to rely on friction. Ideally, you'd use something a little bit with a little bit more bite to it, but we will use a lock nut here since this will move around a lot and it will be a pain in the butt to keep on there. Probably would have been easier if I had done this with the top plate off, but pardon me, guys. It's really funky. There we go. Right. Getting that nut on there was a little bit of a hassle. One thing I will say about these Carnegie HS1177s is that they're not that great in terms of the dynamic range, how quickly it adjusts. I have had instances where just flying into the sun has basically blinded me. So that's a little bit of a disadvantage to those, but the advantages are bloody cheap. I think I paid 25 bucks for this on Hobby King, somewhere around there. And when you're buying a bunch of them at a time, every little bit helps. The failsafe, do you have it fall from the sky or keep on flying? I usually have it fall from the sky. I know the default for, actually no, I have it keep on flying at the moment. I think on my Alien, mainly because I haven't set it up, and that actually saved me. I actually had a fail-safe not too long ago where I is flying a ridge and just actually flying a plateau, a mesa. Oh, that's not going to go in there. And just lost my bearings and got a little bit behind the mesa, and I noticed it when the video went out, and then pretty soon the control locked, and since I had it set to just continue on, I knew I was behind the mesa and I was already powering out, headed towards line of sight, and it just continued on until I picked up line of sight again. So yeah, in that sense it saved me. I don't think it's always going to save me. I think there will come a time where I will regret it, because having it drop where you last had signal is good, makes it easier to recover, especially if you're logging GPS and things like that. Oh, and this isn't going to fit in there right. Oh. All these fiddly little details. So my latest drama here is, it seems like this I'm going to need to add a little bit of spacing to get this to sit in and sit in correctly. Return to home on the KISS FC? No, there is no return to home. Man, return to home is for wimps. Somebody asked in the long range hooligans about return to home. I said, return to home is for guys that hate losing money, hate losing their quads. And if you're into long range, you actually like loosing your quads. So therefore, return to home isn't for long range, guys. Kind of a fatalistic way to look at things, but it is indeed the case. If you're doing long range, you got to realize you will lose it. It will disappear. Not a matter of when or if, it's just a matter of when you're going to lose it. Get it through your head now. I know it pays to, or it'd be nice to minimize that risk, but as you guys saw in my video today, it may not be. Things will happen. Yeah, return to home would probably help me in that case, but maybe not. Maybe it'll just go out and I'll hit a mountaintop and boom, that's it. So yeah, just get used to the fact that you're going to lose a quad and fly in such a way that minimizes that risk, or fly where you can recover. Me, I don't know, I'd say brave or stupid, I'm not sure which. When I fly places where I can't recover with quads that I like, and not very safely. So there we go. I think that covers the build. So let's see here. Guesses on weight. Come on, give me your bets now. What do you think this is going to weigh? Props and everything. Props and mount. We'll leave the GoPro and the battery out. Probably going to be a couple grams more. But give me your guesses. What do you think? $780, 926, and 1.5. Let's find out who's going to be the closest. Turn it on. On here. 1,067 with no props, no nuts. 1,137 with props and no nuts. Falling off here. 1,053 with props and nuts, and 1,069. 7,850. Yeah, J-Tad. Nice. So, 1,169 is what it weighs. Final. Not bad. Actually, it weighs less than I had thought. Weighs less than I had thought it would weigh. Now everything falls out. What do these motors weigh? I think they weigh about 78 grams a piece, somewhere around there. Not exactly sure. It's been a while since I weighed them. Actually, I don't think I've ever weighed them. But the specs say about 70 grams a piece. So, I mean, we're not talking a huge amount, but we are talking about roughly, well, if we think about this, this is 1,169 grams, right? And 13-inch props. That's with no camera, so if you factor in the camera, Yeah, F80s are nothing compared to these. If you factor in the camera, that's another 80 grams. So, plus 5,000 milliamp battery, which is 430 grams. Sure, you're talking about 1,400 grams. Whereas, my lovely little G2 here, with FPV camera installed, and GoPro HD camera installed, recording camera installed, this split 2 weighs 310 grams. And I can still fly a 5,000 milliamp hour battery on that. So the question, what wins? Prop size or weight? So why fly the big job? That's the question. Will I get better footage from the big job? That's the real question. How will it fly? What kind of footage am I going to get out of it? If it's going to be nice footage, if it's going to be better footage than the G2. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of an interesting comparison to see, if the footage is going to be worth it, if it's going to be if it's worth the extra weight. So we're talking probably double the weight. I'll probably run a 5,000 milliamp battery on this Humboldt, since that's what I've got. The Zippy Compact is basically what I've been running on the G2 for its long flights, and that works pretty well. So, is it going to work better on a bigger quad? Is going from 6-inch to 13-inch props going to help? It's going to be a little bit of an interesting experiment, and I'll have to find a nice place where I can test both of these out. FC will decide which is better. It could be, but as you got to remember that the FC is isolated. So the FC sits up here on the clean frame, and it will have a big battery damper on it. The probably weight distribution is going to be off because this is made for like a gimbal. You typically have a gimbal up here, and then having a session up there, it means that most of the weight is going to be back here. So I'll have to push the battery as far forward as I can. One of the other reasons why I left these wires really long. I'm thinking that this flight times, I'm going to guess that the TBS G2 is going to get better flight times. Yeah, this is gigantic. The G2 is more portable as well. So it wins in that aspect. I can stick the G2 on my bag and no problem. This thing takes up all of the space on my bag. However, it does have 2.4 gigahertz video, so that's nice right there. Apart from that, they're pretty similar. It's got a KISS. This has a KISS FC and KISS ESC 24 or KISS 24 ESCs. The G2 has a KISS CC. So it's got 16 amp ESCs, and it never uses more than probably, I think the highest load I've actually seen on that is 50 amps total. Higher cruising speeds, I think. Well, that'll be interesting as well. We're going to be able to check that out. That's the reason why I got the GPS, so I could actually do an apples to apples comparison. I can look at the watts per distance and really give you a good idea of do higher or larger props, even though it's larger quad and heavier weight, do the larger props make up for that? So it's going to be an interesting comparison. I'm looking forward to this. We'll see. Theory says larger props gives better efficiency. I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure. I think lower weight gives better efficiency. That's my suspicion. This will have a session on it, so it's not really an apples to apples, but if I really wanted to do this properly, I'd put a split 2 on it and make it really apples to apples. But no, I'm going to put the session on it because I like the footage from the session. I think it's good. The split gives good footage, but yeah, it does have its limitations. So when I designed the G2, or when I was thinking about the G2, I was thinking for ultimate long range. I was thinking, yeah, I want to get out as far as possible and with as lightest weight as possible. So the split was a concession to that design philosophy. And I knew that was going to be the case. 3-blade is always going to be more inefficient than 2-blade, but 3-blade is easier to tune, at least on the small props. Any thoughts on moving up to the GoPro 6? No, not really. I look at it, and the only thing that would be nice is, yeah, 120 frames per second slow-mo. But to be honest, that feels like a gimmick to me. I don't like the built-in protection. I think it's heavy. I think it's too heavy for what it is. I'd like to see when the Session 6 comes out, which surely it will, that might be the killer. But for me, the Session form factor wins every time over the GoPro 6. The GoPro 6 form factor. Just too big, too bulky. Yeah, but yeah, between 2 and 3 blades, 2 blades are always going to be more efficient. 3 blades are going to be easier to tune. My 7-inch props have not shown up, so I don't think I did everything correctly. Little bit of suspension for the Session. Yeah, well, that's what this is. That gives you a little bit of suspension. Plus, this has, like I said, the dirty clean frame, so that should clean things up a little bit more. So this should produce really clean footage, cleaner than the G2 should produce. Should. That's the operative word, should. Right. Well, I think this is it for the evening. I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. Quad is ready to fly. I'll probably give it a test fly tomorrow. Make sure everything's right. Hook up a battery. Make sure nothing explodes. Hopefully not. Yeah, the battery will get mounted on the clean frame. That's the idea behind the clean dirty frame, is that you use the battery as like mass damper for the clean frame. So that eliminates a lot of the vibration that you see in the footage. That's the theory. That's how they sold it. Yeah, so like I said, I'm going to hook it all up, make sure it all works. Put that antenna on it, the FPV antenna, which I didn't mention, but I didn't put on the scale. That's probably going to add another 10 grams, thereabouts. But yeah, put that on, give it a test fly, and report back to you guys and see how it does. So, well, my beer's done. My quad is done. Hope you guys enjoyed. One more look at the gorgeousness that this is. I'm curious. I'm excited to see how it's going to fly. And we will see you guys next week for the next installment of the Long Range Corner. Catch you guys later.